If you want to save time and still get accurate results, then partner with 4 Pillars Research, proud sponsors of PI Perspectives. We specialize in uncovering insurance policies that can make or break your case. From identifying unknown policies to uncovering accurate policy information, we streamline the process so you can focus on your case. Partner with 4 Pillars Research and unlock the full potential of your investigations. Visit researchfpr.com to learn more.
Looking for an insurance agent that puts you first? Every PI business is different. That's why OREP Insurance can shop multiple markets to ensure you get the best coverage to meet your unique business needs. OREP's model is business by the golden rule, and for over 20 years, they've built their business by putting their clients first. So come enjoy a fast online application and same-day certificates of insurance at OREP.org. OREP has coverage for armed investigators, executive protection, and even has a separate policy for security firms. The application takes less than 5 minutes, so visit OREP.org today. OREP.org.
We're proud to announce a partnership with investigatorconference.com. This free site tracks all the live events in the industry. Want to plan out your travel schedule to see what events are happening in the next few months? Are you hosting an event? Send them an email to add the date. Visit the site today. That's investigator-conference.com. Investigator-conference.com.
Welcome to the new episode of PI Perspectives. Alabama PI Josh Wooten is today's guest. Josh had a long career in law enforcement before taking a position as an investigator with a national recognized law firm. Josh talks about the life circle of a personal injury auto accident and the importance of accident reconstruction. This is a great one to listen to if you do this kind of work or if you want to. Please welcome Josh Wooten and your host, New York PI Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. This is not an episode of the Hair Club for Men. I'm looking at my twin in the camera here. We've got Josh Wooten, who's an investigator down south for a firm called Turnbull, Moak, and Pendergrass, which I think is out of Alabama. Is that correct?
Correct. We're located our main office, Birmingham, Alabama, with offices in Houston, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah. So this is Josh Wooten, and Josh, this is a long time coming to be on PI Perspective. So I want to welcome you to the program.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Excited to do this.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like I'm looking at a mirror, but you're a younger version of me.
Great glasses.
little less gray.
It's coming in. You'll see.
It's coming. So I first met you through Nally, I think, at one of the.
Correct. Yeah. Nally, I think in Florida.
Well, you did a presentation in Florida.
That's right.
It was spot on. It was on foiling information. I remember, like, I chased you down afterwards and said, "Hey, like, can you give me some material to give to my team so they understand, like, the importance of how to do things like that?" We're going to cover a little bit of that today. Really talking about, like, crash investigations, processes and procedures from intake to trial, really like the whole life cycle of a motor vehicle accident case. You have a different journey. You're working in-house for a law firm, but you do have law enforcement background. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so background is law enforcement. I was a police officer in the city of Decatur and the city of Hoover here in Alabama. Started my career out in 2006, and then got out in 2017. So during that time, in about 11-year span, I did everything from just being a beat cop to basically doing traffic investigations, rode a motorcycle for a little while, and did detective bureau toward the end there, and then ended up ultimately back in patrol and decided I wanted to kind of take a new venture and got out of law enforcement. But the foundation that allowed me to do what I do today was that traffic training that I got as a law enforcement officer. So about I think it was 2011, 2012 is when I started to get into traffic homicide investigations, went through the courses all the way through Reconstruction, also was certified to do downloads. for vehicles, which is something that I do now as a firm investigator. And basically just, getting my chops in and learning the business through that was a big segue for me to come over and do what I do now as a firm investigator and have that, inside view of what police officers are doing, what they're thinking, because it's a different kind of set of skills. If you say, if you're on scene at the crash, it's fresh, you still smell the airbags versus you're looking at a car 6 months to a year down the road sometimes. And it kind of gives you a perspective to understand what that officer was thinking as he wrote that report and what he was, all the information that is just overloaded to you. And you have to put it on a report versus having a lot of time to digest that and really dig into it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I don't do much field work myself anymore, but I did an extensive amount of car accident cases. It's kind of my bread and butter. The firms that I work for here in the city, I am not law enforcement. I do not have that background. I have a gentleman that works for me that does. He did it with the state police in New York. And when I brought him on, I was like, okay, and now it's time to get me out of doing that day to day of that and let him kind of run with it because that's his background. But I was always fascinated by going out to the scene, right? Because you're usually out there within a day or so of the incident happening, and you're capturing everything, and you're taking your measurements, and you're looking at scrapes and pavement, and you're just trying to almost do a reconstruction, but not quite because I didn't have the math behind it. I wasn't trained. That's probably where you had more of the advantage, the formulas and all that. But I knew I needed to capture data for a reconstructionist later on. And I had a lot of conversations with reconstructionists, like what's important, what do I need to capture for you? That was one aspect to it. And then also you're talking about 6 months later, looking at a vehicle. That's something that I always, it was, especially dealing with fatalities, man. It's like you go and you look in someone's car and you say, what was this person's life when it ended? Like what look, I just found a CD cover. Like this is who they listened to, or you look and go, man, this car's dirty. Like this person never cleaned the car. Like,
Still have dirty cars.
Like you see a lot of dirty cars. I've had instances where there wasn't a fatality where somebody claimed they were at a complete stop when a head-on collision happened and a non-digital speedometer said otherwise, which sometimes you get in and you see that. So I've always been fascinated by it. The math behind it I think is really cool when you're talking about the life cycle of a piece of metal that a car is made out of, how old it is, and the folds of the energy that's dispersed to help, like that's all taken into account, which that's not my background. I don't really have training in it, but I know it's important, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of what you did there is what I do now. The same type of perspective, right? So when I'm going out to a scene, I'm gathering a lot of that information and I'm not doing a full reconstruction because in the world that I'm in now, we're hiring experts to do that.
Right.
But me knowing the knowledge that I have, the background that I have allows me to look at that scene and gather that information to get to that expert. So I kind of know what to look for. And as I go out to a scene, and a lot of people miss that. They don't go to the scene immediately and maybe wait too long. And a lot of physical evidence can, get washed away by rain, get just, traffic going over it and things like that. So you miss it by not getting out there. And that's, I had a really, really good case where we had a lady that was rear-ended. She was stopped at a stoplight like 5:30 in the morning, rear-ended by a Penske truck. And so we got the case, and I think I was out there within 5 days after her getting hit, which is still relatively a long time, to wait to go out to it. But in that 5 days, I was able to take photographs of the scene, get some measurements off of how far they slid after impact. And even better, I was able to get some video from some local businesses that clearly showed what happened. So kind of getting your feet on the pavement is where you want to be at immediately, just to get an overall understanding of it. And then you can go to those cars later and check those cars out at the tow yards when the police have done their investigation, holds are released. Maybe they're even gone to like a Copart and you have to, get opposing counsels together and have a joint inspection and things like that. But
Yep.
yeah, it's always fascinating to look in somebody's car and you see, kind of who they were and how they lived, and especially fatalities. They can really stay with you,
Yeah.
especially when you go and you're physically there looking at their car and realizing, someone lost their life in this. So it's up to me to do the best job I can do to help represent them and do the best for their family.
Absolutely. That's the way I look at it. So the firm you work with, it's plaintiff firm then, right?
Yes, plaintiff's
Yep.
work.
Yep. And to me, it's just like I always try and do that whole Sherlock Holmes thing in my head, like just trying to work my way back and see how things happen. Um, you had talked about the importance of getting out to the scene right away, and I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating again. Like, there's a guy I know who works on the defense in New York, and we're buddies, right? And there are times where we end up working on the same case. It's happened probably about 5 or 6 times. Yeah, and he comes to me, he goes, "Man, how did you get that video? How did you get that witness statement? Like it's amazing that you were able to source all this stuff before I even got out there. And by the time I got out there, like nobody wanted to talk to me because they talked to somebody already." I said, well, that's the nature of it. I have a lot of really good firms that they just understand that they're gonna spend a little bit money in the beginning before they even know what the policy declarations are. There's enough of seriousness of an injury to go out there to throw some money. Whereas, maybe there's some red tape on the other end that you got to get authorized to go and do it, and then if you go a month or two before you get out there. And I've had that happen several times, and I always stress this, like it's so important to get somebody out there as soon as possible. AI is never going to take away that part of the business of what we do, and it really can make or break. I mean, I've turned $25,000 cases into $1 million cases just by getting out there and doing
Absolutely.
what you need to do. So it's really, really important.
Yeah, yeah, two things you said. AI, one of them. I love AI. I try to integrate it as much as I can. We have AI integrated in our systems here at work. But another thing is, getting out there with, the firms you work for. My firm, we have it where I set it up with our intake department that any kind of serious physical injury case, no matter um, what state it's in, I just want to know about it. Because if it's not in my state or something I can get out to, I'm calling some people in my network to get out there and get some stuff for me and get their feet on the ground. But I have it set up now that any kind of commercial vehicle, serious physical injury case, that I immediately get notified. And then I'm looking at that. So as soon as we have that case signed, and sometimes before we even have it signed, when we're just in the process of talking to the client and they're getting ready, they're just putting me on notification that, hey, as soon as this is signed, we need some investigations done. And so having that procedure set up with our intake department is one of the first things I did when I got here, is went to the people in that department and said, here's what to look for. If you see this, these few things, this is what we're going to start with. I need you to send me a notification through our system immediately. And it works really well. I'm actually working on a case that I was really getting into this morning out of Ohio. And when I got the case, it just sent me a notification that there was a death involved. Really didn't have anything else going on that, but now I'm digging into it, and it was signed maybe 2 days ago. So 2 days ago, I've got a case. I've already got a lot of pictures. I've got the detailed reports, and I know where to go from this. And now I'm going to contact an investigator up there and say, hey, can you help me understand the realm of where you work and kind of how things go? And also get out to the scene and check out if there's anything out there that was missed or that would be beneficial to our case.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to have that network. One of the benefits of NALI and NCISS and all those national associations that are out there, and going to the events, which is why I love going and I love hanging out with
Absolutely.
folks like yourself. It's like we're on the same page. What's so interesting is that you did the law enforcement and then parlayed that into working at the law firm. I didn't have law enforcement. It just wasn't in the cards for me. But I did the law firm before starting my own thing. So all these processes and procedures that you were talking about, that's what I did when I worked 4 years in-house for somebody. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, what I'm doing for one, I can do for many.
Right.
And I decided to take that leap of faith 20 years ago, to start that thing. But it's interesting that I coming across and meeting guys like you, guys like Troy Fleming's another one that works in house. There's a guy, Tony Calderon, in Texas, that his whole career, this dude's been doing it for like 30 years, and he's working for one law firm, and he's amazing. And same thing, national recognized law firm that handles these heavy cases that I've handled so many things in New York for him, and I just got it through relationships, and we met at Nally, which is amazing.
Yeah, the relationships that you get by going to the events, that's really where it pays dividends because you get face time with these people that you may otherwise just email back and forth with.
Sure.
And so when you have that face time and you get to know them a little bit better, maybe get to go have a meal with them and sit down and spend some time with them, it just makes you feel better also about when you call them and say, hey, I've got a task or I've got something that I need investigations done on. And you have that relationship. I mean, you can't put a value on that.
100%. And even the learning behind it, right? So now one of these people that is a peer of mine is going to go talk about what they do. And I love when it's something that I do, because I won't even pretend to feel like I do it better than anybody in this industry. We all do different things different ways, but I've mined so many techniques and so many tweaks to what I'm doing. And I'm sure you've done this. You've gone to a conference or you've had a conversation with somebody in the industry, and you go back to your intake department and say, hey, these guys are doing this over here. This kind of works.
Absolutely. You mentioned Troy Fleming, and Troy is a great colleague and friend. I call him a friend now because I've gotten to know him over the years.
Yeah.
And that guy knows everybody. And
Yeah.
he
He's
has
like,
so many resources. And actually, one of the checklists that I kind of use when I get cases in is something that I derived from him and that I learned, he gave freely. I'm not sure which conference it would have been at, but he was, basically had this checklist for major crash investigations.
yeah. So that was Florida. That was down
Yeah.
in Tampa, where we broke off into little groups. I remember that specifically. It was great.
Yeah, so I took that tool and I integrated it with something that I had developed on my own that was my kind of checklist, and I said let's put these together, and that's where AI kind of comes into play, right?
Right.
I dump both those into an AI program and say, hey, here's what I want for my firm for my investigations, and it basically builds it out, and then I can go into it and tailor it to how I want it to work in the flow. Because the one I'm working on and have worked on is an interactive and where you can kind of check the box and mark it rather than having to write out things. I put mine in like a Google Drive,
Yeah.
and that way when I click on it, type in a note, it's automatically saved. It's there, and then when the attorneys want to know, hey, where are you at on this case, I can basically download it and send it to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do something similar, but we use a case management system to do that.
Right.
But our clients do have access to it. There's notes they can go in and get updates, and they can give us further instructions, which is always great. I think as a business owner, super important, communication, being able to just give updates to your clients is, God, it's got to be at least 75% of the work that we do.
Oh yeah.
To maintain. I mean, you've got a different vertical because you're in house, but I mean, obviously you need to keep your superiors advised of what's going on with things. So there is, that accountability.
Yeah. So my communication a lot is with attorneys want to know high level, like where are we at? They don't want to know the minutia of did you submit a FOIA request and things like that. They just want to know did we get it and what information's on it, right?
Well, I think the other thing too is they need to update their referral source.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of times, like you on these national cases, you've got one firm that's bringing it to local counsel, right? Or you've got a local counsel who's bringing it to a national firm because they want the prestige behind it, right? And they've got a financial interest in it, so they're now pestering. And Josh's boss is going, what's the update on my case? It's like,
Oh yeah, no,
where's my
them,
money, Jimmy? Where's my money?
yeah, keeping the referral sources that's top two. You got to make sure that they know kind of what you're doing on the case. Like we got this case, we referred it. Now what's going on with it? And again, they don't need to know the day to day, but they want to know high level. And if there's big, things that have happened or moving, But I also work with the paralegals. We have a great team of paralegals here at this firm, and working with them and helping that client communication. I do a little client communication. I don't do a lot of it, as that is not something that is my forte.
Sure.
I get more to the point of doom, 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 let's go. This, I need this done, done, done. Whereas the paralegals, they'll take a little more time and speak to the client, get to know them a little bit more. And
Yeah.
so they'll ask me a lot of times, hey, where are we at on this? And I've developed kind of spreadsheets and checklists for them that, hey, if you need to know where something's at, if it's not in the case software that we have in-house, I have a spreadsheet and it tells you everything that I've done on it. And I do that for we have some pressure cooker cases. I do that for any kind of witnesses. I have a whole spreadsheet of all the witnesses. So that way they don't have to specifically go into the case. They can know where I'm at on all the witnesses and just look at it and see, okay, he's contacted them, he's sent it out for signature, or he's meeting with them. And they can know that information right away versus having to communicate with me directly. So it kind of builds that smoothness and in the flow of how the work product goes.
Yeah, I think it's important, and we're going to take a break in a minute. And I want to, when we come back, I want to really dive in that whole life cycle from intake to trial, what that really looks like on the
Absolutely.
types of cases. Yeah, but before we break, it is so important, I think, for whoever's in our industry is doing what we're doing, and let's say you work with attorneys, like having the opportunity to work in a law firm really helps you understand that life cycle. And I think also, if you don't have the opportunity to work in that firm, having a relationship and really communicating with that paralegal and or that attorney, and really understanding, what they need to get them, that much further in their case, like you'll be successful in what you do if you can understand that. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. It gives you a good insight to it, but understanding the flow of how things work in a law firm, especially in, civil litigation, it's invaluable.
Yeah, and it makes you, the kind of the go-to guy. And I think for me anyways, that moment where I realized that I'd actually arrived at this and that I had some credibility is when I'm starting to get solicited by like some of the most respected lawyers in New York. I'm in
Yeah.
a conversation of, hey Matt, what do you think about this? Let's talk liability. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing here? And to me,
Yeah.
I'm not even an attorney, but they're asking
Yeah.
my opinion.
There's nothing better than when you get a call out of the blue and it's an attorney and they call and say, hey, so-and-so attorney that I work with told me that you were the guy I need to talk to about X, Y, and Z. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
And you also got to know when to keep your mouth shut too, because there are some things where I've said it once or twice, and no, we're not going to do that, right? So it's like you got to know when to pull the trigger.
Right. Absolutely.
I've had a couple of those too, and I'm just like, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. Obviously you've got your theory, you're going to understand it. I didn't go to law school, but this is what I'm seeing here. Have we considered this, right? And you got to have thick enough skin when they say no to not take it personally too, right? That's
yeah. Sometimes it's tough to have those honest conversations.
Yeah, but when you have good clients, you can have them, and it's like you build that rapport, you build that trust, and it goes a really long way in doing stuff. But it takes time to build trust like that.
Absolutely.
All right, this is a good point to kind of take a break here, and then when we come back, really want to dive into that life cycle there. So everybody sit tight, and we will be right back.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content.
Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. I am here with Josh Wooten, my evil twin from Alabama. From Turnbull, Mark, and Pendergrass. Josh, I want to welcome you back to the program. How are you?
Hey, thanks. We're doing good.
Yeah. So before we took the break, we were talking about the importance of understanding the life cycle of a personal injury case, whether it be communicating with a paralegal or an attorney, and just kind of understanding what their end game is. You start talking strategy and things of that nature. I'm sure. Do you do that internally with your firm as far as like strategy goes, or you just have set processes?
It starts out with kind of a set process, just the intake department getting the case in. Then we have case development reps that start to build that case. And then we decide, is it something that's going to go to like a pre-lit department or a litigation department? And then from there, is it going to be assigned to an attorney and their paralegal, and how is it going to be worked? But kind of coming in, we're looking at the cases and doing an evaluation on them. Is it a good case? Are the injuries significant, or are they just minor injuries? Is this like a soft tissue case,
Sure.
or is it a serious injury case? Because we're going to work those differently. We're gonna attack those at different angles.
So
So
does your firm take soft tissue cases, or do they refer them out?
we do take some, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't refer them all out, but we do have referral networks that we deal with. So
I got a guy in New York. I've been doing business with him since 2007, and all he does is soft tissue. And
yeah,
like he's known as like the guy that takes those soft tissue cases and turns them around in like 6 to 9 months, and it just kind of it's a volume practice, which is great for me because we do all that pre-investigative work, and it's not a lot. He doesn't invest a lot in investigations. I wish he would invest more, but I kind of get where he's coming from. And then every now and then he'll get the bigger case where we're able to do it. But really, like a lot of the firms that I work with, they're his like, low hanging fruit guy. We'll just get it over to him and let him run with it. So what percentage would you say the cases you work on are sourced directly from your firm, as opposed to referrals coming from other law firms or sources?
Yeah, I would say that we're like 80 to 85% referral. So things that come into us, and then organic, probably the rest, 20, 15%, somewhere around there. Just to, those numbers don't add up, but just basically we do a lot of referrals, and the low hanging fruit, we'll take some of those and run with those. But again, we're not like, you wish they'd spend more on investigations. Well, those are the ones we don't want to spend money on. We want to kind of get the tight package and say, okay, has this liability been accepted? If it has, then great. Let's not do we're not going to be ordering a lot of stuff and trying to spend money on it if we can get the clear liability cases.
So I think what's very interesting about the model that your firm has is understanding like what I do, what I'm hired for. I obviously build a law firm, and it's an investigative expense, right? It's part of the case, it's part of the disbursements, retainer statements filed in New York. Attorneys get 33 and a third, and they get the expenses back. So the money they pay me, they're recovering that money at the end. And they changed the retainer agreement, maybe 15 years ago, where the money that they recover for my expenses does not count towards their 1/3. So they'll recover everything, and then they'll get a third on top of it. So they're always getting more than a third because they're spending money, right? So that's good for me because I've got the green light to work a case up, right? And understanding that a lot of cases go to mediation, where it's important to do that pre-investigative work to give yourself leverage. So that's interesting. But on your model, correct me if I'm wrong here, what you do internally, can you recover that on a retainer statement, or is that part of the 1/3 fee?
No, so I don't do a lot of our contracts and look over those or our referral agreements. I just kind of get the case and kind of run from there. So I stay out of the financial portion of it.
Great answer.
Yeah. So I kind of tend to shy away from that and just say, hey, you guys work it out because I'm here to do the investigations and stick to that.
All right, I won't put you on the spot then. We'll move on.
But I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak and say something and then want
Right.
to here and like that's not true.
No, that's true. I don't know. It occurs to me. So like that formula in New York, while there are some firms that have in-house, I know firms that do. I just always wondered about that. It's like, okay, so they're controlling costs, right? There's the benefit of that,
Hmm.
right? So you want to start talking about like, yeah, we don't want to spend money on this, right? It's capped. They know, Josh and his team, they're making salary, right? They've got the additional overhead by farming things out to other investigators, right? They're going to recover that,
Yeah.
right? So that case you're talking about in Ohio, whatever you pay somebody to go get boots on the ground and do whatever they need to do, that is a disbursement that will be reimbursed 100%.
Right.
I don't think Alabama and New York are different in that way.
And so when I get cases like that, I have to look at like this one is actually a death case. So I know, okay, we're clear to spend the money on it and to
Right.
see where it goes.
Right.
Because that's what you have to do, especially with a case like that, versus if it was just a rear ender, maybe a neck strain, not even a bone break or something like that. Well, I might still call the investigator and see where we can go, but I'm not going to spend as much money on it. I
Right.
know that I'm not clear to do that.
Yeah,
Just case
but
by case.
but you have that soft tissue case that comes in, liability is really good on it, and then all of a sudden somebody needs surgery, right? And it
Right.
goes
Yeah.
from being just a crappy, minimum case to now, multi-million because, the person's young and they, had a good job and whatever the financials are behind it. So you never know, right?
Mhm.
And I've got some clients that love to just pre-investigate. I had mentioned earlier about mediation, and that's a big deal about leverage and really understanding how things happen, why they happened. And I think, kudos to your firm for understanding, we need to hire somebody from law enforcement who had an accident reconstruction background, right? There's so much leverage there. Understanding that, this guy gets it and he's gonna work it up to the point where now we're in mediation and I've got everything lined up where it needs to be. And it's almost
Yeah,
like
there's
having an expert without an expert, right?
absolutely. There's been several times, and it always sometimes catches me off guard when I see my work product will go into a demand presentation, and I'm like, oh, that the expert didn't do that. I did that. I drew
Yeah.
that diagram, or I put those pictures in there, and it's always fascinating to me when it's my work versus having to go all the way to an expert, right? And it still goes in demand and it's sent out.
Yeah.
But I think an invaluable thing here also is realizing when there's a bad case, because a lot of times, what I stress is you'll get a report and that's all you have. And you think, oh, this is a great case. It looks really good on paper. But then you can kind of go out and see some things don't add up, or the report maybe had an inaccuracy or it needed to be amended. And there's all kinds of things that come up, and there's a price you can't put on that to say, hey, this is really not a good case. We need to shut this down early
Yeah.
versus spending money, hiring experts, and going down the road and holding on and retaining a case for several months when you're just really spending money on it that didn't need to be spent.
Yeah. Pump it and dump it. That's what I
Yeah.
call
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely.
And in the world of technology where there are so many avenues for video out there, you could have a police report that tells one story and you go and get the video and you go, uh-oh,
Hmm.
you know,
Absolutely.
and if I've got it, I know they're probably going to get it or they have it already.
Yeah, you have to operate from that level. If I can get it, then they either already have it or they're going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always know how you're going to lose your case, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's
And the technology aspect of it, something we touched on earlier is like the downloads, the ACM downloads, the EDR, the crash data retrieval, however you want to term that. That's something I can do for our firm on certain vehicles. And
Yeah.
so if we have a client vehicle, not a opposing party or anything, but if we have a client vehicle and we want to know that information, especially if speed's involved or seat
Mhm.
belts are involved or any kind of something like that that needs to be investigated that is a pivotal part of the case. Well, instead of having to hire an expert per se and wait for them to go down the road and do the investigation, well, we can access our clients' vehicles faster and go get that information and at least have that knowledge. And like you said, something else is, build it up to the handoff. That's what I love to do. I love to build a case up to where I can hand it to an expert. And it's really nice when I work with a couple of experts and on a routine basis, and they know when they work with me that they're going to get basically a package deal, not just a police report and saying, "Hey, go to the scene." They're going to get a whole workup that's a really good investigations packet that I'm going to send over to them and say, "Here's everything that I've done up to this point to hand off to you, so now you can do your investigation."
Yeah. I mean, like every discovery inspection I used to go to, I was always asking questions, right? I thought it is like it's a master class for me.
Oh,
Here
absolutely.
I'm like 4 or 5 hours with this particular person. And hey, why are you doing that? What do you need this for? What's the importance of this?
Yeah, you were saying picking up tips and tricks at conferences. I picked up so
100%.
many tips, so many tricks from just going to these inspections and watching, experts do what they do. And when I see it and see how they do it, ask questions, why are you doing it? Well, then I can pick up that tool sometimes that they have and go do the same thing.
Right.
One of the things I do is vehicle scans and drone work. I'm a certified drone, I hate to say pilot, but I operate drones. You have to get your Part 107 license to do that. And
Sure.
that's been a game changer for me because I can go out to a scene and fly the drone perpendicular to the roadway, get a good, video of it, drop that into a CAD program, and I can even do the vehicles and do like a orbit of the vehicles at a couple of different heights and drop that into it. And I have renderings, and I can show the exact damage on cars. I have a
Yeah.
really good one that was hit by where it's active case. So I have a really good truck that was hit by a big truck, and I can show both vehicles and the accident profile and kind of take those and link them together in a CAD program is beautiful. It's just to be able to take that and flip it to an attorney and say, here's your damage profile versus just a still picture. And I give them a 3D rendering that they can manipulate and look around and zoom in and zoom out and then put those vehicles on a scene in a
Right.
CAD program. They love that. It's a game changer.
Yeah. And that's something like during a mediation, your adversary sees that and he goes, oh, crap.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to do
Especially
it.
if
We're
the
going
firm investigator has
to.
done that. That's not even an expert. That's just
like,
someone they put together
yeah.
before they hired an expert. That really makes a valid point there.
I don't want a jury seeing that one,
No,
that kind
exactly.
of stuff. I know, like, God, I went to a discovery inspection probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and in a Copar lot, and I see this guy. He comes out and he's got his big truck with him, and he opens up the back of it, and it's like Ghostbusters. It's like every piece of equipment in the back there, and he pulls out a tripod and he starts, putting this thing on. I'm like, what is this guy, an engineer? Is he doing a survey? What's the deal, right? No, this guy was creating a grid with lasers and doing this whole thing. And I'm going, oh man, I used to like create a grid like physically in person. I'm measuring things out and laying down string and tape and whatever. And this guy's got a laser program to do it, which is going to be so much more accurate than what I was doing.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that's the old school way of doing things. Create the grid, measure out the folds in the metal and just kind of understanding all that stuff. And like technology has taken that to a whole nother level, right?
Oh man, it's only getting better, and that's the thing is trying to keep up with that and use those tools that are available. I'm always looking for new tools that are available to help me do a better job.
Right.
Back in law enforcement, we'd go out and shoot the scene and be out there and you stand and look through a laser and hit a point and have to take measurements with tape and say this is triangulation points here. And
Yeah.
now that's all pretty much it can be obsolete. A program I use is Skybrowse, and I love that program because I can drop the renderings into that, and I can use 2 points that I've done like a known measurement on, and it gives me the whole measurement for the whole scene. I can measure anything in there from that. it's amazing to be able to drop that in from a drone footage versus
Yeah.
having to go out to the scene and literally measure every single little thing.
Yeah. I wish we could use drones here in New York, like in the city of.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
too much airspace controlled
not
over there.
not kosher.
No,
And it's interesting because you do look at Alabama where it's located, and it's really that between Texas and Florida, I guess that commerce, or Georgia, right, back and forth. You get the ports in the Carolinas and Georgia, and then you've got this. Hey, we got to get stuff to Texas, California, and it all goes through Alabama.
yeah, cuts through.
And then you get those like commercial actions where you get tractor trailers behaving badly. And
Well, yeah, when I worked in Hoover, and that's where I did a lot of my traffic, primarily all my traffic stuff. We had the interchange of I-65 and I-459, and that's I-459 takes you down from 65 to I-20 to go over to Atlanta, right? So all kinds of commercial vehicles, all kinds of wrong way wrecks, DUIs, all that's everything happened up there in that corridor.
the little corridor, yeah. I remember like I had a massive case. It was a commercial truck where there was some sort of recall with a tire or something, but the tire was missing, right? Nobody could find it. So I had to like hire somebody, and God knows if they used a drone or not because it was years ago. They were able to locate and find this tire, like in the woods or whatever, and then we had to like ship it to New York and chain of custody and all that. And I remember, I had my own business, but I was working in an attorney's office, and it was for that attorney the case. So I'm there, we're working in my at my desk doing my thing, and this tire shows up. That's just freaking massive. And we're like, what are we going to do with this tire? Where are we putting it? How are we going to preserve this thing? Like it was a problem. And he ended up like he had to rent out like a storage space
Right.
to store it.
That's a good point that you made me think about is I worked for a firm previous and this firm, and really there was no procedure for evidence collection, storage, chain of custody. And I remember just thinking like, as law enforcement background, like that was everything. If you seize some drugs from someone, you had to have a chain of custody. You had to have showing where you got it, where you took it, when you took it, how you dropped it, how you sealed it, all the things.
Yeah.
So I've developed those here as well, but basically just having something where we have a storage unit. So if we have large evidence that needs to be stored, we're not just popping it in a closet and closing the door. We have actually a facility that's secure that we can say, okay, you're going in and out. We know who's accessing it, who has access,
Yeah.
when things are going in, and log them out, do the chain of custody, all the things.
Yeah, I remember a case that worked out in the east end of Long Island, and it involved a Ford GT 500, and there were not many of them made, less than 100, and they had a recall on it, and it had something to do with the transmission. And we did our discovery and inspection, and it was like 5 hours before the guy found what he was looking for, and I'm just photoing and videoing and just memorializing everything. But this car was like they paid for a whole warehouse for this thing for years. It was such a valuable case. The guy who had the accident lost a leg, and he was a realtor that was making over $1 million a year in its sales, salary. So he was moving a lot of product, and he was a young guy, and that was it. He could not perform his work duties the way he used to, and it was worth it for them to actually pay for the car to be there. You had said earlier you were talking about Copar, and I just got to smile a little bit. If you do what we do, you know exactly what Copar is, and
Right. Yeah.
and one of the things that always like made me giggle a little bit when I go into a Copar is like when you first get there, they have the really nice vehicles up front. They got the Lamborghinis, the Ferraris, the Porsches, the whatever, and they're just destroyed. And I'm always looking and thinking, going, what happened here? What kind of idiot was driving this thing and speeding or doing whatever that he just destroyed this like $300,000 or $500,000 car to the point where it's just sitting in this junkyard now? Like, what's the story behind that? It always made me think.
Yeah, there's always the motorcycle section, and you always think of like all the motorcycles and doing inspections, and they're usually up front. And then,
Right.
like you said, they always have the nice cars that are auctioning off, and you're just like, man, just brand new cars just smashed up. But your cars, in the very back of the lot. Some of them, most of them bring them around, but there's been, some they're like, oh, it's on row D, slot
Right.
number 800. And you're like, where is that? And you got to go find your car and it's tucked in 6 deep. So,
They got those big movers, man, where they move
oh
around.
man, those things they're moving. They're not stopping for
Oh yeah,
anybody.
no, those guys draw like maniacs.
Man, they are not stopping.
100%. I remember I had to do a discovery inspection on a bus that had like flipped over, and I was like, yeah, the movers aren't moving that thing, so we had to go and find that thing. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Um, and listen, these are the stories that I don't get to do anymore because I'm not really out in the field anymore. Like we talked earlier about me taking myself off the road, but it's like these were interesting experiences. But that whole end of life thing, man, was something that always stuck with me. Somebody died here in this thing, like
Yeah.
crazy.
Especially when you get somebody that's, age shouldn't matter when you pass away, but when you get someone that's young and it really, those are the ones that I think stick with you more so, just because you see where you're at in your life and think, man, they just missed out on 20, 30 years of living.
Yeah,
And you're like, man, just what could they have done? Where could they be? And that's what really drives me. Okay. Not that I wouldn't do any better work on another case, but it really gives you more drive and a more factor to like, I'm really going to invest myself into this one because, I want to do right by them and do right by their family. I had one where the lady was hit head on. Um, she was driving down just a straight country road here in Alabama and nothing around, straight road, straight as an arrow. And as she came over a small little hill crest, nothing that would have really blinded her view and sight line, but she came over that. We did some measurements and time distance analysis, and right about the time she would have peeked over that hill crest, she would have seen this large truck that had basically lost control because they had gone off the road, overcorrected, gone across the road. And I just thought like her final seconds, what she would have been seeing is just boom right in front of her, a truck that's lost control and she has nowhere to go.
yeah,
And hit that truck and had to be airlifted away from the scene and ultimately passed away. And had been married for about a year, early 20s, just super sad story. And that's one that really stuck with me.
yeah,
That's a case that we ended up kind of that I was mentioning the demand package, the discovery, and things like that. A lot of the stuff that I did along with the expert
right.
ended up in that package, and we were able to go to mediation and mediate that case. And obviously, that was pretty clear liability. If trucks lost control, our driver's doing nothing wrong, just driving down the road, and we were able to settle that one for multi-millions. And it just really felt good
Yeah,
to be able to work on that, do all the inspections, do the downloads, take the pictures, visit the scene, and hand that package over to our expert, who I work closely with and is a great guy. He took it and ran with it, and the work product that we were able to put together and basically send with the attorneys to mediation. That closed it out, and it really felt good when the attorneys came back and said, "Hey, what you did." All at the front end of that with getting, everything, talking to the officers, getting the THI report, documenting the car, documenting the scene, arranging the downloads, all that. It really helped lay the
yeah.
foundation for that case, where we didn't have to go to trial because it was so good leading up to that. And we were able to present that at mediation and get it done in a day. So,
100%, man. And that's like, it's so important to work with a firm that understands the importance of that, man, and is not penny pinching, because it really can be the outcome of your case is very early on some of these matters where you're just able to do it. When you start talking about cases that stick with you, one that completely sticks with me was a Jeep Liberty versus a tree, right? Okay, so this is a car that had a blowout, and ended up crashing into a tree, and the guy died, young guy, and with kids, and the backstory is super sad, right? So it took a really interesting turn because, okay, tire blowouts, stuff happens. Was there a recall on the tire? No, there wasn't a recall on the tire. This and that. And I started digging into the police report and digging into eyewitnesses. And I was able to find some eyewitnesses that basically saw this guy. So the deal was he went to a Home Depot to go buy something. He was fixing up his house or something, the apartment, and they didn't have what they needed at this one Home Depot in Westchester, New York. So he was driving from Westchester to the Bronx to Home Depot to go get what he needed. And I, the witnesses I was speaking to basically said the guy had road rage. Like he was bobbing and weaving in between cars. He was flipping people off with the giving them the bird, like driving excessively. And you're going, oh wow, this is an aggressive driver who lost control of a car with a blowout and all that, right? So I'm like, this could be a problem. Like we need to understand what happened here. And lo and behold, there was a recall on the steering column for this freaking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a contributing factor, right? You want to talk about comparative negligence when this has now become a products case because there was a problem with that steering column. It was verified. And here I was up in Copar with the freaking expert going through and pulling it. And here's this case that, looked like it was just road rage and unfortunate, turn of events where there was this contributing factor of the steering column being all jacked up. So it's like you never know until you dig in and start doing it. But, always know how you're going to lose your case. Here are some witnesses that if the other side, when they talk to him, they're going to be like, no, this guy was,
Mm-hmm.
it's his fault. He was driving like a maniac.
And that's kind of like a hidden products case in that
Yeah.
you see it as one thing on a piece of paper, and you think, oh, this guy just per the witnesses had road rage, but then you do your due diligence, do your inspections, and you realize, hey, there's something wrong here. There's a recall here on this vehicle. That's just something that it can be easily overlooked because you may not go to the recall search and see, hey, what recalls are on this vehicle. It's just
Right.
something that may be
Right.
that was done later, but not as part of your initial investigation.
Right. Which ties us right back to Mr. Josh's list.
Yeah.
I've compiled my checklist of how to do things and all that. And I'm sure that's part of the procedure on these cases that you're looking into doing that stuff, right? So,
Right. Yeah. So when I first get a case in, and like I said earlier, with our intake department, they're going to notify me of anything that's serious or what we've deemed serious as far as a case. But then I have what I call is kind of my red flag assessment. I just want to these need to be searched up. And it's just a list of things like, high speed with speeding involved. Is this a commercial vehicle involved? Do we need to flag this for some kind of EDR preservation? Do we need to make sure that these cars, basically, are we putting out letters of preservation so we can secure them and hold on to them for however amount of time so we can do some downloads, do some inspections and things like that? Are there any criminal charges, things like that we're looking at? But kind of go through that list and check those and decide, is it a viable case? And then we're looking at injuries. How bad are we injured? How bad are our clients injured? You're just going through the process of getting the minimal information that you need to start your investigation. And sometimes that all it is a report, and then you have to jump off from there and go. But I work with our case development reps as they're investigating liability, they're investigating insurance coverages to make sure that there's enough money there that we can, go out and spin these cases. And as you do this and get better and better at it, you kind of realize which cases you're going to be no holds bar on, like go for it. And then you kind of realize which cases, like I need to kind of pull the reins back on and be, fiscally responsible, not only for our firm, but for our client in their case. I don't want to go spend a bunch of money that is not going to be recoverable for our client, especially if it's not a huge, case or a really bad physical injury that they can recover from.
And there are resource tools that are out there, right? So one of the sponsors is program 4Pillars. They do insurance research. I use them all the time. They're great.
Yep. You actually turned me on to 4Pillars, and I've been using them here at our firm to look up some insurance policies, and they've worked out a couple of really, really great cases that have helped us locate some policies for our clients.
Yeah, and what I love about them is they're the breadcrumbs they give you on no hits. Like there are times where it'll come back as a no hit or inconclusive. Like we think it may be here, but we're not 100% sure. We can't charge you the full rate on this because we can't 100% say that this is the policy. But here's a little information, and then you go and you contact whoever, and they're like, yeah, that's the policy, right?
Yeah, we got one just like that where it said we were unable to, I don't remember their exact words, but unable to find a policy pertaining to what my search criteria was.
Yeah.
But we did find that they had a policy with X, Y, and Z, and they necessarily didn't tell you all the information, probably because they can't give that to you legally because you didn't request that search. But it gives you enough breadcrumbs that you can start digging as an investigator and usually turn up, okay, well, there is a policy out there for coverage over something, maybe not that specific vehicle or that incident, but there is coverage somewhere out there for that person. We can find that and hopefully tap into that.
Absolutely. So if you're an investigator and you're out there and you do the insurance recovery and all that, like that's a really good resource. Show notes, we'll have a link to them. They've been a big supporter of this program, and it's been game changers for me. And the downside of that is sometimes you get that insurance back and you're just like, oh, like New Jersey is the worst. I think they have like a 15,000 minimum.
Oh man, that hurts. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh man, I got to now deliver this information to my client.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be happy, but no one to tap out, right? It is what it is. There's not going to be an excess policy on a $15,000 coverage. It's not going to be umbrella coverage. Sorry,
Yeah.
and just know how to get out of it, right?
Right. And doing what we do, you're probably like me. I have excess insurance because uninsured motorist policies and things like that. And a lot of people will sign off on those on the UMs and disclose like, oh yeah, I don't want it. And I'm like, that's a detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't ever sign that document. Pay whatever it is to get that UM coverage.
Yeah, I tell the story all the time too. Another nightmare one where I met with somebody who had a fender bender, and I'm like, okay, let me see your insurance documents. Hey, you have the bare minimum for some, supplemental underinsured. I suggest you call your carrier, look into it, bump it up. It should be at least XYZ. I think I told them just make it at least 300,000. You can't use it for this accident, but if you ever have an accident again, it's going to be be covered, right? I met the same guy like 3 or 4 years later who had another accident, and this time he lost a limb, he lost a leg, and it wasn't his fault. And the gal who caused the accident had her learner's permit, wasn't even licensed, and it's just like, oh yeah, we had this conversation, dude. Why did you just listen to me? It is what it is. So
What's crazy is I didn't really know, even being in law enforcement, no real understanding of how that world worked. So I had a big learning curve when I first came into going from criminal to civil.
yes,
And part of that learning curve was understanding insurances and how they worked. And as I began to understand it, I was actually reaching out to my old police buddies saying, hey, you need to check your insurance policy because, I know we work these things and we write down tons of insurance information, but you need to have X, Y, and Z coverage because here's why and what I've seen, what's happening.
yeah. So when you get into this business, you do two things. You increase your insurance that you have for you and your family, and you stop riding motorcycles.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Those are two big things. Yeah.
Because it's never bumps and bruises with motorcycles. It's broken bones and death.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to wind down here. The moral of the story is if you do this type of work, understand it, right? Understand what is necessary for you to help your client or your employer get the answers that they need. Have that checklist, prepare, and really understand what you're doing. There's a lot of money to be made in this type of investigative work. I've got a 20-year career doing it, but you really need to understand it, right?
Right. You need to understand it and you need to invest in yourself to understand it. And that investing in yourself goes with that training and continuing your education, always knowing that there's more information than you can put in your brain out there, but you need to go out and try to find as much as you can to make you as sharp a tool that you can have in your toolbox to go out there. Because you find those few attorneys, especially if you're on your, you have your business, obviously a little bit different. Mine are all here. They come to me. But if you have your business, you're going out there, I would say if I was starting today, I'd go find those 5 or 6 attorneys that understand the process and how valuable a good investigator can be, both for crashes and just civil litigation in itself. And I would, invest in myself to be those 5 only investigator they contact. And then whatever they need, I'm either going to get it done or I'm going to sub it out and get it done and basically go from there.
Yeah, I mean that's really how you build it. You got to build that rapport. You got to understand what you're doing, and when you get it right, I mean, when you have a relationship that's right, you have a green light to do what you need to do. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm recommending. I did the intake. Here are my recommendations from the intake, and I got some clients where there's just go do it.
And that's how it is in house. Is once you build that relationship and understand, because each attorney, well, they're going to want things a little bit different, and how they, whether it's done this way or that way. You have to learn that, and the same with your learning attorneys. But once you get that relationship built with your attorney or your client, that's when you kind of get the green light, and okay, they're going to let me go do what I need to do on this, and bring back what they need and show that there's value there.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to wind down here. My Southern brother from another mother. So I see you and I'm like, wow, I could have like totally ended up working in-house for a firm, and I almost did. But as an attorney, that, but that's another story for another day. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this stuff and just kind of riffing back and forth. I hope folks listening really have got inspired, if they do this kind of work, to really dig in a little bit better and look at their own processes and go forward. How do folks get a hold of you if they have questions?
Yeah, best is probably email. It's jwooten@turnbullfirm.com. I don't mind putting my phone number in the show notes if you want to shoot it out there as well. I can shoot that to you. But I love talking to other investigators, especially that have questions about crash investigations and even what I do, and talking to them. And every conference that I go to, there's always somebody that comes up to me and says, "Hey, I got this crash case and I really don't know where to start on it. I don't have a background in it. Can you help me?" And I want to see them succeed and give them some notes on how to do that. So feel free to email me, shoot me a message, give me a call. I'd love to talk to people about that, and just keep their toolbox sharp too.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks for checking out today's show. Josh has a great structure that was built with years of experience. Thanks to 4 Pillars and OREP for sponsoring our podcast. Additional thanks to PI Institute and Education. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspectives 50 to save $50 when you join. Please follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn. And if you have a question about the show or comment, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next week with a new show. So make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.